time to embrace change and be about that life.
This is Dr. Bass with the About That Life podcast, the podcast about life or living intentionally forever. All right, it's summertime, and I told you all I have to get ready. Now, the thing is, one thing about getting ready is we know that we want to build muscle, build mass. So what better place to do it than a gym? We're at Snap Fitness in Cibilo, Texas. And again, today I have with me experts, not only in the gym, but also in life. I've got Pastor Barnwell. He is a professional bodybuilder. That's right. I told you, when I'm trying to learn how to get big, I'm doing it to the greatest. Then I have an amateur bodybuilder, and this is Dr. Kenneth Johnson. Again, he's a psychiatrist, and we're going to be working through building muscle and improving our mental health. And then you got me, regular guy, right? Regular guy. I've got the typical dad bod, right? I got the round, yeah, I know what y'all are saying, but I made a choice that I'm going to change, and we can do that, especially when we talk about mental health. And this month, like I said, our focus is going to be depression. So, Dr. Johnson, what is depression? What is clinical depression?
Yeah, so it's a term that we use a lot, at least, within our families, friends, we use this term depression. And normally you use it to mean you're sad. But here in the office, in the clinical environment, we have some criteria that we like to go through. And so specifically, there's about 9 different things we're looking for. And within 2 weeks of a period of time, if you have these things and it causes severe dysfunction in your life that pretty much takes you out the game, takes you out of your job, takes you out of things you do with your family, your friends. If you meet the criteria for these things, then we diagnose you with depression. So things like sleep loss, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, particularly, is a big one. Something like your brain fog, you can't concentrate, things like that. Your appetite changes, which is interesting because sometimes you don't want to eat. Sometimes you eat too much, so it could be either way, depending on what type of depression we're talking about. And there's a couple different flavors of depression too. So it's not just this vanilla type of a thing we're talking about, but those type of things. We also have something psychomotor slowing, the sloth-like motion. And it's very profound to see, but you're just moving slower, kind of like at the end of a diet. We have no energy.
See, y'all can have that end of diet. They didn't even tell me what I was supposed to wear. They got belts on. They didn't give me any info. I'm just here, random dude. So, Pastor, what you do, and I know that you balance both the spiritual side and the emotional side. From a depression standpoint, what do you see either in your parishioners or that you've experienced personally that, allowed you to say, hey, I need to make a change. I need to do something to get me out of this rut, or that psychomotor slowing, like you said.
It pretty much aligns, with what we're talking about physiologically, right? Mentally, the way that we perceive ourselves really becomes like a first indicator. And, those have been the challenges that, I face personally, and you can see that, that low self-esteem just kind of hanging out. And what typically happens is people withdraw.
Yes.
When I look at, church and members that are struggling, maybe going through some things, they've been open enough to know that. The first thing you see is they'll pull away, separate, which we know is really the worst thing that you could do. Right. Somehow, though, we're convinced with ourselves that we can become stronger when we're alone, which does not work, right? So we know that. So those are the things that we typically, I've seen within others, especially when we're talking about believers, but, within myself, exactly what he said, just feel like, man, I don't want to move. Like, I'm a little bit discouraged, and typically in our circles, when we talk about believers, we don't really want to admit it.
No.
That's part of it, So taking ownership.
He's able. He is definitely able, right? So if he's able, why are you having issues,
That's right.
So I guess when we talk about it, right, we've identified it, we've defined it. What are some strategies, non-pharmacologic, because I know there are medications, but we typically have an aversion to medication. For many folks, especially African Americans, we don't have access, right? When we talk about mental health access, it falls into that same, kind of category. So what are some strategies that we can use to reduce our risk of depression, as well as decrease when we do have it?
Yeah, so great question. Thank you. So it's an investment. And so I would say this, people kind of forget that your mental health, just like your physical health, requires an investment, requires daily investment, a renewing
right
type of investment. Okay, and so definitely not a Bible scholar, so I don't want to quote the verse, but a renewed off back and forth. And so, but what I was saying is it requires an investment. And so something as simple as a gratitude practice daily can really help change that perspective. What Pastor was talking about, your perspective on how you see things. Gratitude and the service of others, two huge things that we've seen, even just, with the evidence showing how it changes your perception, changing the chemical balance in the brain, just the act of saying,
Being grateful.
literally, I know it sounds so simple because you're like, nah, Doc's lying. No. But literally keeping your eyes focused on the things that are good, which also was it. I think that's Hebrews. I think that's Hebrews. Okay, yeah, I'm trying. He got me, he got me. But what I'm saying is just keeping your mind focused on those things is huge, and it actually changes the chemical composition of your brain.
So that's mindset medicine. Mindset medicine.
With the mindset.
Hey, man, I'm trying to be a walking billboard. Not everybody's an amateur bodybuilder and a pro bodybuilder. That's the plan B and C. But Pastor, even through that gratitude space, sometimes, you talked about getting away from people, separation being a bad thing. But people, when they come down on themselves, it's usually because of some event in life. And in our last episode, you talked about, I had X event. And I thought about, when you were by yourself, you were riding a motorcycle and you said, hey,
Trying to take myself out.
yeah. And now let me ask that, how did you bounce back from that?
Well, we have what I like to call traumatic markers, right? And I think that, it's really kind of a tactic of the enemy. And it's amazing how, our psychological, state really kind of aligns, right? And this is really what we're talking about, that balance, mind, body, soul, right? And it really all connects. Because, the one thing that, again, coming out of that is first you got to recognize where you are and be able to admit it to yourself. And as believers, we tend to have a challenge with that of just really kind of being truthful, right? Where we have basically two truths. There's a subjective truth, this is how I feel, my leg is hurting. Then there's an absolute, God is a healer, right? Those two things actually exist at the same time because we exist in both spirit and flesh at the same time, right? And see, so those challenges are reality. What we fail to do is give each other grace.
Yes.
To say, okay, I get that. Like, I understand that. Because you know what? Every single one of us have been there. When we talk about, mindset, Bible says, let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus, right? Romans says, don't be, conformed to the thinking of the thought patterns of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing which you think.
That was it.
Philippians 4 says, think on these things, right? Those things which are lovely and lovable, those kind of things. And it aligns, right? Because ultimately, if the enemy can control the way we perceive ourselves, he can control the way that you act.
Yes.
And that has that physiological effect that we call depression, anxiety, blah, 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 right? That's what happens. And so this is why we talk about the helmet of salvation, being able to protect that mentality based on not who I am or experiences that I've been through, right? Because we don't want to label ourselves by divorces, abuse, rape, all those types of things, growing up without a father or a mother. We don't want to label ourselves with that. What we want to do is we want to begin to see ourselves through the original intention that God has for us. That's the salvation. That's the helmet of salvation piece, because it's a constant reminder, hey, you're fearfully and wonderfully created. There's nobody like you. There's only one Dr. Batts. You were so great when he created you, he couldn't even do another way. You know what I'm saying?
Sound like that. I'm gonna bring him on the road with me when I'm having issues. I'm walking around the hospital having issues. Well, I love the strategies. I love the tips. But I know people are wondering, well, why a gym? Why couldn't we have this conversation at a Starbucks? Because I did not have my coffee yesterday. He jumped in straight with swollen, looking like little Toothy up in here. But no. Well, the gym, because as a man, sometimes it feels good to just push some weight around. I can tell you that going to the gym is a therapy, hence the name of this series, Iron Therapy, right? Where we want to instill and have that mental health, but at the same time, we We want to build physical muscle because we know that there are some chemical reactions that occur. We talk about the endorphin release and various things. So over the next several, I'm hoping, months, you all will see us in this capacity, working out, training, but also talking about mental health issues that face all Americans, but particularly men, because we don't have a great outlet. We don't, come together and sit down and have open. That's just not part of who we are, but it certainly should be given the things that we face and the issues and challenges that we have. Now, let's hop into the workout.
Okay.
So today, right, when we talk about depression, right, it puts us down. But when we think about our body, we can break it up, and I'll let the experts talk, or at least I'll break it up into 3 big general muscle groups, right? So you have legs, which everybody hates, but they will provide you with the base that you need. Then you have your chest, right? Your chest, that's the one that I like. I just like to have random extra medium shirts. I just like extra medium.
Medium.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want them shirts like that. And then you have back. And back for me has always been a challenge. So I said, why not tackle the thing that's been a challenge? Just like how mood and emotion has been a challenge for us as men. So today we're going to tackle back. Pastor Barnwell, tell us what we're going to be doing today.
So we're going to start out with doing some, just some light pull downs, and they're going to show you some different ways of actually doing that, depending on, where you're at. Maybe you're just beginning, maybe you've been lifting, for forever and you've got that background. I'm going to show some rows, and maybe some things with lower back. But I think that, part of what we're doing is really being able to correlate those types of things with the weight that we carry, with life itself, right? And, I don't know about you guys, but typically for me, I can come into the gym like this. I was talking to Dr. Bass earlier, and, my head is everywhere, the things that we've left during the week. But the minute I touch the bar, my focus just goes right there, right? And I really associate the pressures and the things I've been dealing with moving that weight. And so my game plan in every rep and every set that you'll see us do today is to not let the weight defeat me. No matter what's on there, like it's me against it. And so I typically tune myself out. So you see me with my beanie on and my hoodie pulled over. It's not, that I'm crazy. It's just that's my way of focusing. It gets me right where I need to be. So that's some of the things we're going to do today. And we'll probably throw some extra in there so that you can take your shirt off when you read.
So you say throw some extra in there for me, because I need some extra. But no, and the thing is, if you all are thinking, oh, I'm not a professional about it, that's fine. We got a professional. Hey, I'm not an amateur, you got an amateur. And like I said, you got me, regular dude, just trying to lift. They came in with bottles and lunch boxes, and I'm like, y'all didn't tell me that I needed bottles and lunch boxes. He came in with a fleece on. I'm up in here, with some cargo shorts. You know what I'm saying? But in any case, we hope that you enjoy this series. We're going to love what we're going to do. Now we're going to hop into the workout.
We truly hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, share it with a friend, leave a comment, and certainly join us for our next episode of the About That Life podcast.